And this was what I wanted to kind of ask you is like, how important do you think it is to have financial security in order to be able to adopt that mindset? Or do you think it's possible to adopt that mindset earlier? Because my goal, part of this with this podcast, is to help people with the mental transitions in life and how stressful it is. And it took me until I was 37 and financially secure to be able to be like, hey, I'm no longer worried about that. Or, I'm not worried about it. Like, it's not going to define me. It's not going to be what I'm thinking about going into this fight. Winning isn't going to be what I'm thinking about. Just focus on being my best. But I do think that if I was in a financially tough situation, that I would probably have more of that stress and pressure, which a lot of these fighters who are up and coming not only are financially pinched, but they are also so desperate to make it and not lose their part on the way. But I think that this mindset that you have that I'm talking about is also so important to have. And if they could have it a little bit earlier, I actually think they'd be better anyways.
Oh, 1,000%.
Right?
And I don't think we're ever financially secure, right? I think it's more financial literacy. Like, understand how money works. It's like, if you make $100,000 a year, then let's say you make $100,000 a year, but you spend $120,000, you're fucking broke essentially. But if you make $100,000 a year and you spend $20,000 a year, you have $80K to live off of. And then I started investing when I was super young, like 2010. I started investing. Like, I would
In what?
I started investing very young in the S&P 500, the Dow Jones. I had an investor. I would throw away $53,000 every single year. Like, I would fucking just max it the fuck out. It's like, okay, go to pay my taxes. Here's $53K. You take $53,000 out of your overall gross. You make, I'm gonna do easy math. You make $100,000 a year. You put away $50,000. Now your taxable income is at $50,000. Then you have all your taxable expenses. You do $20,000 and da 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 da. Now you're paying taxes on $30,000. Like, you just learn how to play the system. So I did that when I was super young, and then you do that from 2010 all the way to 2024. Then you're sitting there, and it's like compound interest. That balloon just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's like, holy shit! Like, you don't have to fight anymore. You still want to work. You still want to keep on making money. But that's the biggest thing. And that was financial literacy that I think a lot of people can learn. And that's one of the things I was going to go to school for and get my Sears 7 license, was to be a financial advisor to help athletes. Be like, hey, Miesha Johnson, hey, I've been in your situation before. I've made $490,000 in one night, and I feel good. Make sure you pay your taxes. Okay, let's put half away, and let's max out your let's become an S corporation. You become an S corporation. Let's put you as a president. Let's get you have a girlfriend. You know what? Let's not do your girlfriend. You're not sure about her. Let's do your mom. Let's give her a salary too. Oh, guess what? You're an S corporation. You could put away $250,000. Now you made $1 million. You put $250,000 away in your SEP IRA. Now your taxable income is $750,000. Oh, guess what? You're gonna pay mom $250,000. Oh, guess what? Now your tax, like, just doing all that shit. And that's where you get from financial literacy, not financial. And then the end game is to be financially secure. So I agree with you. If athletes have that financial literacy, not just all athletes, not just mixed martial artists, right?
Yeah. Have you heard about the hope molecule? Maybe, I don't know if it's the same thing as this. I
have not heard about hope.
But and I wouldn't be able to tell you what the medical term for this, but they call it a hope molecule. And basically what it is that when the muscles contract, they actually release this molecule that improves mood, lifts depression, helps with mental health. Working out is one of the best things that you can do to improve your mental health and to improve rates of suicide, rates of depression, these kinds of things, because it is such a powerful synergistic effect of loading the muscle tissue and allowing the body to really do what I believe it was designed to do. But it's almost magical.
Well, the muscles are producing, releasing myokines. I suspect the hope molecule is one of the myokines. 30 years ago, there was no such conversation. When I grew up, I've been doing this a little over 50 years now. So when I grew up, that sounds long, doesn't it? A little over 50 years now. 50 years last October 1st. So when I grew up, we were told that muscles had two purposes, appearance and locomotion. That was it. We now know that's not true. Muscles produce and release the myokines that drive or mediate the tissue regeneration process.
Well, to be fair, probably I would assume 50 years ago and even beyond that, people used their muscles and bodies a lot more. So maybe it wasn't at the forefront of a problem, like an issue like it is now, where people sit for, 16 and 18 hours a day and play video games, or sit at a desk at a computer in the dark all day and do their work. And they wonder why they suffer from depression, crave sugar, and have all the other, bad side effects that come from being stagnant.
I'm very confident that sitting still, as it says in my graphic, and please put my graphic up with this, stillness is the enemy.
I agree.
Just flat out stillness is the enemy.
I completely agree on that.
Yeah, I originally started publishing on medications. And I saw that with my patients, you can only go so far with medications. And so that's really, I took a turn where I need to figure out nutrition better, not just for their health, but also my health. I wanted to improve my own health as well. And so that's when I started kind of taking the nutritional approach and looking more into the research on that, because ultimately, it's what you put in your body, what you're feeding yourself on a day-to-day basis, that's going to be the biggest driver to your overall health.
So what does a typical day for you look like as far as nutrition goes?
Yeah, so for breakfast, usually I have 3 pasture-raised eggs, and I'll have some type of grass-fed meat. Maybe it might be grass-fed steak. Maybe it's a little bit of organic grass-fed bacon. And then I'll also have about 4 ounces of grass-fed milk for the calcium, and then also basically like a organic peach or nectarine. So that's breakfast. Lunch will be usually another, let's say, 5 ounces of meat, fruit, maybe more grass-fed dairy too. And then dinner is probably pretty similar. Like it's like I rotate which kind of meats. I rotate the fruits. Usually it's like either organic nectarines, peaches, or berries. And then, usually I try to add in some dairy for grass-fed dairy for the calcium, because it's very difficult to get calcium if you're not consuming dairy. The only other way I know how to get calcium, bioavailable calcium, would be to like really clean off the eggshells and grind them up and consume that as a powder. Or if you take a supplement, but I prefer to get it from food. So I would probably consume about 8 ounces of grass-fed milk a day to try to, increase the calcium intake, which is really important for athletes, bones and et cetera, bone health. That's important.
And are you salting your foods? Are you consuming salt first thing in the morning, right before you go to bed? I mean, what are you doing as far as salt goes?
Yeah, as soon as I wake up, I always have 1 scoop of Relight in about 10 ounces of water. So that gives me about 1/3 of a teaspoon of salt. And then, I just salt my food to taste. So salt goes on the eggs, goes on the meats. If I do have some potatoes too, I do have consume some organic potatoes as well for the carbs. Salt goes on those bad boys too.
And how much do you work out, if I'm not prying too much in your personal life?
No, I lift weights about 3 to 4 times a week, and I run about a mile and a half, about 4 times a week as well. And I play basketball probably 3-4 times a week for about 30 minutes. So yeah, I'm fairly active.
Did you have a point where you were having any health ailments that improved for change in diet, or when you started to become aware of this? Did you have any reason why something was not going right and you said, hey, I think I want to go about this a different way?
Yeah, so I did. I tore my pectoralis tendon bench pressing when I was 26. So that's why I became very interested in collagen, in collagen health, because collagen is, makes up your tendons and your ligaments. And I was probably getting none. And, prior to, I was 26, so that was over 10 years ago. I was just starting to get into my research at that point. And also coffee, I was way over, because I was writing so many publications and books. I was drinking 9 cups of coffee a day, for like, I don't know, for years. So I way over consumed coffee, and it caused probably a lot of reflux. And once I'm actually completely off coffee. I don't think everyone needs to be off coffee, but it's a slippery slope for me. If I have 1 cup of coffee, I'm going to want 2, I'm going to want 3, I'm going to want 4. So I just cut it out about a year and a half ago.
And I would, from the outside, look at you and say, that is a woman who knows her worth, who knows
Yeah.
her strength, who just knows it. But I feel like maybe it was just a slow change, you know, but you said something that surprised me. I wouldn't have thought of you. First of all, I can never picture you. I can't picture you chubby. I need to see a
Yeah.
picture in order to believe
Yeah.
it. But I also feel like you went from a place of, I don't think this is what, like, I could never fit this mold. I'm not, that's not me. My parents aren't like that. I'm not like that. I'm not an athlete. And then all of a sudden maybe start to do this, and like, then you become the best, and you never show a shadow of doubt in yourself. Like never, no
Yeah,
matter who
but
you're fighting, all the best people in the world.
very often inside I was like, maybe not confident, because you have to be confident to reach the highest, but somehow I was like, okay, that's the room, this room is full of queens. I will try to be the best one, you know, the strongest one. So here I was sometimes this little girl from back in the day, but I was trying to be at my best every single time momentum of my life, you know. But the change was slow. I don't know how. I always felt that I was born to reach the stars, you know, peraspera ad astra, and yeah, that's the thing.
That's so, yeah. I
It's
mean,
difficult for me because I don't remember, but I was always very like confident person,
mhm.
but because of the amount of work I was putting in every single day, no matter what I was doing, and even till now, you know, I'm a workaholic. So yeah.
When did you start fighting? When did you find the sport?
I was 16, so a friend of mine, like ex-boyfriend of my older sister, he wanted to impress her that he has such a good relationship with me, so he took me to the gym, and I fell in love from the first training. I didn't fall in love with like beating, kicking people, letting my aggression like go. I fell in love with like breaking my own limits. It was like every training was like I felt like I was walking on the edge, and it was up to me if I make it further or not, you know. And this is what brought the fire in me, you know. And so I was training twice a week, first 2-3 months. I had the first pro sparring, and I felt different because all the people were like nervous, paralyzed, and I was like, okay, I'm nervous, but I kind of like this feeling. And I was right there, you know. They let me shine, I shined as the brightest star, and that's the thing. And I fell in love from the first training. So I used to do climbing and taking pictures before, but martial arts took, like Muay Thai took everything, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the thing. So I was always counting my reps, and I was counting the reps of my friends, and I was like, okay, who's better? Am I good, better? You know, I was always like this. So, yeah.
Here's what I suggest people do. Just take a glass of salt water and drink it. You're going to feel nauseous. It will make you feel nauseous because there's so much salt in it. It's why even if you ever have a problem where you end up with blood, like an ulcer or something, it will make you feel nauseous because there's so much salt in your blood. It's not good. So what happens is when you do that, so once in a while, that's not bad. If you're having an intense depletion situation, because salts are very bioavailable into the bloodstream. They do digest very quickly and get absorbed into the bloodstream very quickly. So
And
that's
are you
cool.
distinguishing at all between table salt and like a good sourced pink Himalayan or sea salt? Because I
Okay.
feel like those are very different too.
It's all salt, though.
Yes.
Okay, so just in terms of salts, we'll go there. So the nice thing about the different table salts, just NaCl, it's just sodium, okay, but or sodium chloride. But when the Himalayan salts, they have other trace minerals in them, which is nice. That's why they're great. But when salts used on a regular basis in your digestive tract, what happens is it actually irritates the lining of the bladder and the kidney, and it will make you urinate more. So now you're flushing, and you're actually irrigating rather than hydrating. So people who use a ton of salt-based electrolytes, we've done lots of tests with them. We use something called the oligoscan to find out, well, how replete are their minerals? And it turns out they're not. So they're actually putting all these minerals into their gut all the time. And now one of the things I want people to begin to think about this, one of the tests I say is take your salt-based electrolytes and put them on your house plant and watch what happens. Now take our minerals and put them on your house plant. Watch what happens. That plant is going to go crazy. It's going to be so happy.
Really? It's a good plant food. Oh, it makes sense.
It's incredible.
I didn't even think about that.
Oh my gosh, your plants will go crazy, okay? But if you take your salt-based electrolytes and put it on your plants, they're not going to be happy because your house plants are freshwater plants. All of the microbiome in your gut, all of the incredible numbers of fungi and the plant life in your gut, in your microbiome, is freshwater based.
Let me ask then, is ketamine itself addicting? Does it have addicting properties?
Yes,
Okay.
it can be. There's definitely a population out there that, like I said, mostly with the street ketamine, because they take it in huge amounts, like grams, and we're giving it in what's called milligrams, 1,000 times less. In these even in anesthesia, we give it less, So, but now that I'm talking about milligrams, so Matthew Perry had general anesthetic doses, levels of ketamine in his system when he died. So, and what's interesting about Perry's case is I read the coroner report and I dissected it word for word in my Substack article on him, which was very popular. It kind of got me known on Substack a bit. And the coroner did not find puncture wounds. He didn't look for intramuscular injections. He didn't look for, like the levels he had would have almost had to be injected, or man, he would have had to try with intranasal ketamine and oral ketamine. I mean, to get those levels is almost mysterious. And why did he have 3,000 plus what we call nanograms per ml in his system at the time of his death? And even so, he'd just gotten back from 2 hours of pickleball. We knew he was a setup for a heart attack because he had a big atherosclerosis plaque in his LAD, which is the widowmaker, and that was growing and obvious on autopsy.
Widowmaker, the like high death rate. Is
the
that what
one
you mean
that
by
kills
that?
you right away. Yeah,
Okay.
You have a widowmaker coronary artery and that kind of heart attack. Those are the kind of people who fall dead and
Okay.
have no chance.
Right.
And then he was in a shallow jacuzzi, and I'm not sure, but I mean, I don't care how high or whatever high your level is on ketamine. Was he on other things? Like, apparently not. But as soon as you feel like you're choking or dying, what happens when you almost drown? Like, your senses come about you, your sympathetic system runs up, and I mean, you can wake up from anything and almost. And it seemed he would have popped his head up and breathed if but.
But doesn't ketamine mess with your vestibular system? Maybe
Yeah,
he went the wrong
absolutely.
way. Maybe he was trying to.
Maybe he went the wrong way. In a pool, I could believe it, but in a 3-foot jacuzzi or
But you know how people like walk backwards, like upside. I mean, they you've seen
absolutely.
that like on the street
and
drugs.
we'll never answer that question. That's an unanswerable question of what actually happened. I'm just, but
saying that
I
they,
think
like,
there's more to
basically
his death than just the ketamine, because my problem with it was that the media just wanted to say, oh, it was the ketamine, it was the ketamine, it was the ketamine. There was other things going in there, and then I have other sources who kind of let me on that there was other things going on with him, and like his heart disease, and then the other big mystery is that the latest article that came on is that the Los Angeles Police Department and the DEA are now trying to create a criminal investigation, because guess what? The coroner report, all ketamine paraphernalia, meaning intranasal, needles, vials, oral forms of ketamine, were all taken off premises before the police arrived.
conveyed in a way to think that men are shallow, and it's not that men don't care about people. It's that we see our job as protecting and providing for people as being focused on the things that we have to do in order to achieve that. It is almost impossible for a man to feel love if he doesn't feel respect. In fact, give a man love without respect as anyone other than his mother when he's very, very little, and it's going to feel like pity. And most men, more than anything else, do not want to be pitied. We'd rather crawl across broken glass than to be seen as an object of pity. What that means is then we have to do the things worthy of respect. And that comes with being capable, that comes with being strong, that comes with being competent. What I would tell women, if you want to understand something about men who are trying to achieve that, because there's some men that have bought into this idea that you don't want that from us anymore. And what we're all ended up finding out is that the men who don't embrace masculinity and really try to live out the truest form of it, they're not happy, and they're weak, and they're not respected. And oh, by the way, women don't like them. So it turns out women don't like, and when I say women, I don't want to be overgeneralized here, but when it comes to like third wave feminist culture, they're creating men they don't even like. What a shocker. So men do want to be loved. We do want to be respected. We deal with our feelings differently. It's not that we don't have them. They usually manifest a little bit differently because men do not want to be perceived as being weak, and because many of the responsibilities associated with being a man means that we have to compartmentalize our emotions in order to get something done in the moment. Sometimes it can be very, very hard to go back to that box where the emotions are and fully flesh that out. And if we do, we don't want to do it in an environment where we feel weak. The other thing I would say is that I think my wife has always done an incredible job of understanding when I'm processing something, and I'm happy to talk with her about things. Can I also say this? There are some burdens that I carry that are supposed to be mine. They're not hers. And I don't have a right to throw those burdens onto her in order to help emotionally fix that. Now, I feel confident that I could share anything with my wife and whatnot, but there's certain things that I'm supposed to do as a man. And a lot of it is that I don't need time to talk about my feelings as long as I know I'm appreciated for carrying that burden.
What richness is.
And I'm still not even close to where I want to be, but I think that it's kind of like in fighting, you never stop growing. If you stop trying to learn as a fighter, well, that you've reached your peak and now it's nothing but downhill. So I think that farming is the same way. Like, we just can't ever be content with where we're at. We just got to keep working. Like right now, I'm fencing off more pasture. Yeah. I'm trying to grow more crops. Actually, the main thing that I'm working on at my farm is labeled as infrastructure. I've actually got to build barns, carports, things like that.
I love the infrastructure your chickens got going on, though. Living in an octagon, man.
I mean, it is phenomenal. That is one of the coolest things ever. I definitely, once again, if you look at all the work and money that I put into that octagon, it ain't worth it. But for me,
it's worth it. You look out there and smile,
every
right?
Damn penny. I mean, I don't care. It costs me thousands of dollars to do that. And, I ain't going to make thousands of dollars off these little chickens. I don't care. That's a good investment to me.
It's a good investment.
That thing will probably last my whole life. Now, if there was an earthquake, it would shake it off the blocks. But potentially, probably. Hopefully, I never find out.
Yeah, hopefully not. I hope that blessing stays with you.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Oh, man, what else? I feel like there's so much else to talk about, but I know we're getting towards the end of this thing. So I don't know if is there anything that you wanted to say, or anything that, I don't know, a message, anything?
Well, thank you for sharing your testimony. I really enjoyed that. And thank you for having me on, and just thank you for being the person that you have been over the years. And I've watched you for a long time, and it's really an honor to get on here and just ramble a little bit, because I needed to let all that out.
And speaking of ramble, I do have another one for you. I know what it was. It was the restaurant. We were talking about it a little bit. I know you've talked about it, and I know it's
absolutely.
way down. I know it's down the pipeline, but I love that kind of dream. And I did want to get a chance to share with you too that it's called the Sage Bistro, I believe is what it is on there. Molly is her name. She's a chef, and she's doing the regenerative farming in LA.
Awesome.
First ever regenerative restaurant. So if you're ever in LA, maybe stop by. I think they got something going on in Texas as well.
Okay.
Where I think they have a ranch out there as well.
Yeah.
But anyways, point in case is I'm starting to see these things come about, but it's like they're white knuckling it because people don't understand that what goes in their bodies matters.
Exactly. That's the problem, is we got to get people to understand the knowledge is power. If we can get people the knowledge, we could pop up these healthy restaurants in a matter of years. It would just, if people knew how important this healthy food was, there'd be so many restaurants out there tomorrow.
Yeah, and healthy food doesn't mean it has to taste like rabbit food. Let's clear that real quick. I think sometimes people get scared about healthy. We're talking like grass-fed, nutrient-dense burgers and what fried okra you were saying, something like that.
Fried okra, that stuff's good for you.
I mean, with the right oils, right? We got to get the healthy oils and everything, but farm grown, these nutrients.
Yeah, your life matters. No matter what you're going through, no matter, what you're dealing with, you still have purpose. You still have meaning. And I know it's hard to believe that when you're going through hard times, but if you look back on your life, your biggest growth moments came from your biggest pain moments. It didn't come from the perfect moments. It didn't come from everything going right. Everybody's story, when they tell their story, it's about something they overcame. And so when you're in that season of trouble, when you're in that season of what I call troubled water, you have to allow that time to teach you how to swim. You have to tell yourself that this is not just for me, it's bigger than me. So even in my life, you look at me and people say, oh, Trent, you're so inspirational and motivational. And what people don't know is that came from me going through so much in my life, going through so many things I didn't want to deal with and go through. But I say, you know what? I'm going to use this for greater. I'm going to use this to help somebody else. So when we talk about purpose, Miesha, a lot of people think that purpose is just for you. But purpose is not just for you. It's about affecting other people through the things that you went through. So I would just tell that person, how is this going to add to your best life? How is this going to create a better future for you? And if you can't even fathom that because you're such in a dark moment, just decide to say, you know what, I'm going to give tomorrow another chance. And that's what I did, Miesha. I didn't know what tomorrow hold. I didn't have some plan to be like, oh, I'm going to be here in 5 years. I just decided to not give up on tomorrow until my tomorrows actually turned into something that I became proud of.
We were talking about this a little bit when we had a call before the show about focusing on the things that you can control. And it sounds like, to me, that's what you did in that moment when it felt like the world was spinning out from underneath your feet and you didn't know where you'd be a year from now, much less sometimes even hard to get to tomorrow. But tomorrow is what you can hold on to. That's what you can control, that decision you make in that moment. The one decision at a time, is that something that you felt like you implemented, focusing on what you can control and sort of eliminating a lot of the thought about the things that you can't control?
1,000%. I feel like that is the recipe to life. When I talk to people, and I have, whether I'm coaching or mentoring, everybody's problems are usually tied to things they can't control. And everybody's problems are these external things, how somebody feels about me or this happened, and it's life, right? But I always say, look, peace is something you will never experience if you keep allowing the things you can't control to control you. So when I'm in my moments of chaos and my moments of where I want to panic, I just relax and say, Trent, what can you control in this moment? There's a million things that you can be worried about, but half of our worries, I would say 99.9% of our worries and fears are things that will never happen or things that we can't even have any control over. And so I'm like, okay, how can I take ownership right now and focus on what I can do? And I think when you realize the power in that, it can change your freaking life. Because again, I've been this person too, where it's like, I'm worried about this and I'm worried about the internet and I'm worried about this person, I'm worried about that. I'm like, you can't control that.
The predictor of success, it is never like race or religion, intelligence, whether you score the genetic lottery and you're pretty, if you're strong. It's grit. It's grit and resilience. And being able to give that to the next generation is the greatest gift that we can give. But how do we give them that?
That's what I'm curious about. I mean, I want that for my children too, you know, and I'm constantly in this, and you don't know how to do it exactly right. I mean, nobody hands you a manual. Here's how you do it. So I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm constantly between this balance of gentle parenting, but also not wanting to lean too hard. And, you know, some people might poo-poo gentle parenting. I'm not talking about passive parenting. I'm talking about acknowledging the way that my kids feel, letting them know it's okay to have feelings. Behaviors are expectations, though. So we have lines in the sand that we do not cross.
Yeah.
You can be mad. That's fine. It's not bad or good to be mad. It's not bad or good to be sad. It's a human emotion. Let's get you to the other side of that. But while you're going through that, it's unacceptable to hit. It's unacceptable to throw things. These are the boundaries, and I'm going to hold them. You threw something on the ground, you got to pick it up. Like,
Well, what are consequences of boundaries then? You know, if so. The worst thing that we can do is give them the authority to control where those lines are.
Yes.
And saying, okay, this is where this line is. You can't cross it, or there's going to be consequences. Okay, like what are those consequences? And then if heaven forbid, I say the consequence and I don't actually give the consequence for that line crossing, they have then dictated where that boundary is.
Absolutely.
You know, so like. To oversimplify it, if we look at a nation with sovereign borders, and we say, okay, this is our border. Don't cross this, or you've created an incursion to our country and you've invaded us.
Right.
And then they cross that border, and we're like, hey, I told you not to do that. And you're like, well, too late. That's now our land. And that's what's happening in the brain is this is mapping. And it's the most beautiful thing because like we see it in real time as they're exploring and pushing and pushing boundaries in a beautiful way, and they're supposed to create, and this is just my opinion, to see grit and resilience. You said perfect parenting. All right, nobody gave us this manual about how to do it perfectly. It's impossible. To create resilience and grit, you can't do it perfectly. There has to be chaos. There has to be anarchy. There has to be failure. There has to be struggle. There has to be arguments. There has to be this, like, that's the only time that there's growth is when there's friction. You know, when something struggles and breaks, when a muscle gets torn, the muscle comes back stronger. Similarly, when the mind gets broken, two things can happen. It can be like permanently damaged, or it can grow back stronger. Like going and doing something really, really, really hard, trying to run, you know, a 5:30 mile at 45 right now is hard. And failing and breaking and being like so angry, and then going back and reprogramming so I can try and work my time to get to that ultimate goal is what I'm doing both physically and mentally. And well, then how do I program that for a 4-year-old, you know, that like doesn't even have a frontal lobe that's functioning yet?
Right.
So fun.